Welcome back to the big club. We are back again in the big club, and I've got a question. Would it really matter if humans went extinct? And I know that sounds like a crazy question to the people who don't question anything at all, because obviously, if you ask most people, they're immediately going to say, of course, it would matter. What the hell are you talking about? Humanity disappearing sounds like one of the worst things imaginable, you know? We make movies about it, we talk about asteroids hitting Earth, nuclear war, climate disasters, artificial intelligence wiping us out, and all these different scenarios where humanity could potentially disappear. And whenever people talk about the future, there's always this assumption that humanity needs to continue. Like, why? We need to survive. We need to colonize other planets. We need to go to Mars. We need to become an interplanetary species so that if something happens to Earth, humanity can continue somewhere else. And I've always found that interesting because nobody really stops and asks the most basic question. Why? Why does humanity need to continue? Who exactly needs us here? Right? What happens if we don't? And I honestly feel like if humanity does pull it off and we go to Mars, that will be like a big FU to religion because that will totally change like the scale of things, the scale of civilization as we know it. Like the fact that we are able to leave this planet and go to another planet. Oh my God. Like we as humans, that will be officially the statement, that will be the statement to say we are gods ourselves. Like you don't need a god. Why would you need a god if you're able to go to another planet? Like, how does that work? Like you're a god yourself if you can pull that off. But anyway, sidetracked. Now, let's say humanity survives another million years, okay? And what exactly have we accomplished by doing that? We've existed longer, you know? That's basically it. And I think humans struggle with this question because obviously we're human ourselves. We're trying to judge the importance of humanity while being members of humanity. Of course, we're biased. I mean, a cockroach probably doesn't want cockroaches to go extinct either. Like every living organism basically behaves as if continuing itself is extremely important. That's what life does. It survives, it reproduces, it protects itself. But just because something desperately wants to continue existing doesn't necessarily mean its existence has some importance, it has some objective importance. No. No. And that's where this conversation gets interesting if you think about it. Because imagine something completely ridiculous happens tomorrow. Like every single human being disappears instantly, right? Nobody suffers, nobody sees it coming. Like, poof, like we're just simply gone, 8 billion people or 10 billion of us gone. I mean, what happens? What really happens? Nothing happens. The earth continues. The sun rises the next morning, except there's nobody calling it morning. You know, the oceans continue moving. Rain still falls. Wind still blows. Plants continue growing. Animals start walking through deserted cities. Eventually, our roads disappear. Our houses collapse. Skyscrapers fall down. After enough time, most of the physical evidence that this massive civilization ever existed, it starts disappearing. And will the universe make an announcement? Species of planet Earth, we are proud to announce that Humanity is now officially extinct. No, there's no funeral. I mean, the stars don't stop shining because we're no longer here now. I mean, certainly the Andromeda galaxy doesn't give a shit. Jupiter doesn't give a shit. Mars doesn't give a shit. The universe spent billions of years existing before humans showed up. And it will spend billions or trillions of years existing after we're gone. We are the ones who decided that our presence here is very, very important. We decided that we are VIPs. And that's understandable, right? Because we're conscious. We have families, we love people, we have memories, we have ambitions. Oh, what about my career as a future doctor? I'm sitting here making this video because I obviously care about something. And maybe you care about your parents. If you have children, you care about them, your girlfriend, your boyfriend, your friends, your career, your hobbies, whatever. So on an individual level, things absolutely matter to us. I'm not denying that. If somebody I love disappears tomorrow, that matters to me. Something happens to my family, obviously I'm affected by that. But that's completely different from saying that humanity itself has some objective cosmic importance, right? Those are two different things. Something can matter to us without mattering independently of us. That's the distinction. Because if humanity went extinct, who exactly would be around to care that humanity went extinct? Like, who would give a shit? God. Obviously, he cares. Who? Allah? The Hindu gods? Who the fuck will care? They've never cared. Whoever they are. That's the weird part. Imagine the last human dies. Who's sitting there saying, damn, humanity is gone? Nobody. Who's disappointed that nobody will ever hear another song? Who's upset that nobody will ever build another freaking skyscraper? Nobody. Nobody. There isn't some audience outside humanity watching Earth and saying, this is terrible. Humans were supposed to continue. As far as we know anyway. And this brings us into something even stranger. People will say, but think about everything we would lose. Music, art, science, technology, whatever, love, friendships, whatever. Everything humanity could have created in the future. And yes, from where we're sitting right now, I mean, I know, that sounds tragic because we're alive. We can imagine those experiences. But if there are no humans, who is experiencing the loss? Who? Let's say humanity disappears before somebody writes the greatest song that could ever have been written. Okay? Who misses that song? Nobody. Nobody is floating around in non-existence thinking, fuck, I really wish somebody had written that song. That's what makes non-existence such a strange yet beautiful concept. When you don't exist, you don't know that you're missing anything. Think about the billions of years before you were born. Were you bored? Were you lonely? Were you sitting there waiting for your turn? Were you upset that you couldn't watch YouTube? Of course not. There was no you to experience any sense of deprivation. Life creates the creature that can then experience the problem. Before you exist, you don't need happiness. Then you're born, and suddenly happiness becomes something you need. You're born, now you need food. Before you existed, you didn't need food. And if you don't eat, you now suffer. You die of hunger. Before you exist, you don't need companionship. Now you're born and loneliness can hurt you. Come on, man. Come on, man. Life creates the needs, right? And then spends, gigantic amounts of energy trying to satisfy those needs all throughout your life. Have you ever thought about the amount of energy you exert on a daily basis just to keep on satisfying this living flesh? It's crazy. And we call satisfying those needs the good parts of life. You're hungry, you eat. That feels good. You're lonely, you meet somebody. That feels good. You're bored, you entertain yourself. That feels good. You're sexually frustrated, you have sex. That feels good. But there's an interesting, I would say, an interesting philosophical question underneath all of this. If the need ever existed in the first place, if the need never existed in the first place, did it actually need to be satisfied? And that brings us back to humanity. If humanity disappeared without suffering, there would be nobody left needing humanity to return. That's what people struggle to get their heads around, because we're imagining extinction from the perspective of us existing humans. We're still sitting here alive saying, oh my God, imagine there being nobody. But there being nobody isn't an experience. Nobody experiences there being nobody. It's like asking what it was like for you in the year 1785, right? Oh, what was it like before you were born? I don't know. It wasn't dark, it wasn't peaceful, it wasn't boring, it wasn't scary. There simply wasn't a you. Right? Now, obviously, there's another side to this. I'm going to play devil's advocate against my own argument. And I think it's fair to acknowledge it. Humanity has done some incredible shit, like seriously, the fact that they say we came from apes, right? The fact that these weird apes, managed to understand mathematics, build cities, split atoms, all that cool stuff, leave the planet, that's what that's what they tell us. I don't know. Create the internet, write music, study galaxies billions of light years away. That's what they tell us, that they're light years away. For sure, we don't know that. We don't know. Some of us, we don't know. I've never been to NASA. I've never worked there. I don't know shit. I'm not going to sit here and pretend that humanity hasn't achieved anything impressive, right? Humans are fascinating, We can be incredibly creative. People sacrifice themselves for strangers. Parents devote their lives to their children. People create beautiful things. We've developed medicines that prevent people from dying. Good shit that we've done. But again, here's my problem. Why does any of that mean humanity must continue forever? Something can be impressive, without being necessary. A beautiful song doesn't need to exist. A painting doesn't need to exist. The pyramids didn't need to exist. Human civilization itself didn't need to exist. We're the ones who assign importance to these things because we're the creatures experiencing them, right? Right? And then there's the other side of humanity that we don't like talking about when we're celebrating the species. What about war? What about genocide? What about slavery? What about torture? What about murder, disease, poverty, hunger, abuse, factory farming, animals eating each other alive, children being born into absolutely horrible circumstances, people spending decades working jobs they hate just to survive, people getting cancer, people developing dementia, and slowly forgetting everyone they love. Lots of things I can go on. My memory is quite good these days. People living with chronic pain, people losing their children, people offing themselves because existence becomes incredibly unbearable to them. This is also part of the story, you know? And I'm not saying the bad automatically cancels out the good. I actually am saying that. I'm saying you can't talk about preserving life forever while pretending that preservation only preserves happiness. When you continue humanity, you must remember you continue everything that humanity comes with. Every freaking beautiful experience and every freaking horrific experience. Every wedding, every funeral, right? Every birth, every murder. Every friendship, every betrayal, every orgasm, every, I don't know, panic attack, every achievement, every terminal diagnosis. You've got cancer, Walter White, you know, that's the package. That's the package. Nature looks beautiful when you're standing far away from it. You see a documentary, a beautiful forest, birds flying, yeah, 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 beautiful, whatever, lion walking through the grass, and you think, oh my, nature is amazing. But imagine experiencing nature from the perspective of the animal being eaten. Have you thought about that? Have you thought about being the zebra getting ripped apart while you're still conscious? Ooh, I bet you don't think about that, do you? Imagine an animal starving because there isn't enough food. Yeah, I bet you don't think about that. Imagine parasites eating organisms from inside their bodies. Oh, you don't think about that. Imagine baby animals dying shortly after birth. No, you don't think about that. Nature doesn't have hospitals. Nature doesn't have painkillers. Nature doesn't have human rights, or rather animal rights. Nature basically operates through reproduction, competition, hunger, disease, and death. And it has been doing this for hundreds of millions of years. So when people say we need to preserve life, why? Why is continuation automatically good? Because evolution programmed organisms to want continuation. Yeah, that explains why we feel that way. Doesn't necessarily prove that continuation is objectively valuable. I mean, we want to survive. We're terrified of nuclear. We're terrified of asteroids hitting Earth, which they never seem to do. We're always told, warning, asteroid blah, blah, blah is gonna pass, blah, 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 blah. Why don't they ever freaking hit the Earth? Why? God, come on, man. Oh, my goodness. Now, okay. Okay. Some people, they dream about humanity spreading across the galaxy. Okay, let's imagine we actually do it. Humans colonize Mars like Elon Musk wants. Then another solar system. Then another. Eventually, humanity spreads across thousands of planets. Now there are trillions of humans. And those humans still need food. They still experience loss. They still get jealous. They still become depressed. They still fight. They still compete. They still age. They still die unless technology somehow solves all of that, somehow solves the exact nature of human beings, so what exactly did spreading humanity accomplish? I mean, we took the same biological process and made more of it, you know? Now there's more people capable of suffering. There's more people who need things, more people who can lose things. So, okay, maybe we eventually create some incredible utopia. Fine, let's grant the most optimistic scenario imaginable. No poverty, no disease, nobody has to work, everybody lives comfortably. Technology solves everything. People live 500 years old. Okay. Eventually, the universe still changes. Stars die, planets become uninhabitable. Listen, entropy doesn't care about our utopia. It doesn't. Oh man. So, would it ultimately matter if you know, come on, man. Would it matter if humans go extinct? Come on, man. No! I keep coming back to the same answer. Doesn't matter. Oh man, we want civilization to continue. We want somebody thousands of years from now to look back at us. We want to leave a legacy. I mean, even individually, people obsess over being remembered. And I said, that's not me. People put their names on buildings. They make, what are those? Monuments. They want their bloodlines to continue. They want their work to outlive them. Come on, guys. Even being remembered has an expiry date. Think about how many humans have already lived and died. Billions. Most of them are completely forgotten. We don't know their names. We don't know what they wanted. We don't know who they loved. They probably had problems that felt unbelievably important at the time. Arguments, money problems, relationships. Maybe somebody insulted them. I don't know why I'm thinking about Napoleon, Napoleon Bonaparte, think about all the wars that Napoleon had to fight. They don't matter now. They mattered back then. They don't matter. So, um, you know, the answer is no, right? The answer is no. It matters to us right now because we're human. We have attachments. We fear losing what we have, you know. Nah, man, And obviously, I'm not saying we should hurt anybody or try to make extinction happen today. That's completely different from the question I'm asking. But yeah, man, there's no reason for us to exist, really. No, no, no. There's no reason. See you on the next one.